talking to people in this community?
Yeah, a lot of rumors on social media, Marnie, that's for sure. It's such a mysterious case. It's also very, very sensitive. And you realize that when you're here. This is a rural part of Tennessee. Sort of everyone knows everyone. There are a lot of people that frankly did not want us to come here, and they don't want anyone from the outside here digging into the case. But the bottom line is Summer Wells has now been missing for 5 months. Today is the 5-month anniversary. Again, strange circumstances. Basically just vanished from her home while her mother was there, and her younger brothers and her grandma also on the property. And up until this point, law enforcement say they have no leads.
Brian, Summer's parents haven't done a whole lot of interviews apart from that Dr. Phil interview we just showed. I know that you were in touch with them today. What are they saying?
Yeah, it was a challenge talking to them today, but we finally sort of made it happen just within the last couple of hours. Earlier this evening, we talked to Donwells, Summer's dad. Candace Wells, the mother, would not come down and talk to us. They would not allow us on their property. We're going to show you all of that, show you the entire exchange tomorrow night on News Nation. But what they say is that Candace, the mother, is extremely emotional right now. Obviously, she has been through a lot over the last 5 months. She just was on Dr. Phil. They said it was even a struggle getting her to go to Dr. Phil because she's been so upset about everything that's gone on. But obviously, anyone following this case has a lot of questions for her and for the father, Don. Here's a little bit of our exchange from just a couple of hours ago. Is it possible that something happened to Summer that Candace knows about that's not her fault, but she is just nervous now and feeling bad about it?
Well, no, because she knows better. She would know to go directly to law enforcement. An accident's one thing. She would never do something like that. She knows better than that. I know it happens. It does happen with people, but no, she would go directly to law enforcement. She'd call an ambulance right away, number one, do anything. She would freak out.
Could she have gotten herself into a situation where it wasn't her fault, but...
No.
You know what I mean?
No. She's a good mother. She loves her children. She's not going to allow any situation like that. The biggest mistake she might have made is maybe choosing some wrong friends, which is, it happens.
It was interesting there. He said she made some wrong friends. We talked a lot more about that. It was a long conversation. We're going to have it all for you coming up tomorrow night. Marnie?
And Chris is joining us tonight. He has been looking very closely at the case of Summer Wells as well. We appreciate your time, Chris. 2 things you said on your podcast recently that caught my attention covering this case. The first is 5-year-olds just don't vanish. And the second thing you said is in every investigation, you follow the evidence. So where is this evidence leading you right now with your experience?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. I'm grateful. And I think right now the evidence is potentially pointing towards somebody very familiar with that property in relationship to having access to that property.
Why do you believe that?
Well, it's based, on a couple of things. One, obviously, what we call the victim continuum, where you look at what, if you have like an L-shape type of graph, you have environment, situation, circumstance on the left side, and then you would have low, medium, high risk on the right side. And what you want to ask, a couple of questions to is not necessarily how did this victim disappear, but rather why was this victim selected? And you then, inquire into what was the environment, what was the situation, and what was the circumstance? And then you ask, are those activities low, medium, or high-risk activities? In Summer's case, everything stays on the lower end of that victim continuum. So there's a high probability that this child was a targeted victim. and rather than a higher probability of a victim of opportunity. So somebody had to have access to that property to take this child immediately. That was my first opportunity or my first thought process.
The parents are, they're having to answer some very tough questions. They have said they have nothing to do with it. What do you think?
Well, I think, both of those parents have been interviewed numerous times. I think both parents are obviously innocent till proven guilty, like everybody else. But at the same time, the stranger abduction theory has been driven primarily by the parents, whereas law enforcement, even 5 months into this, has not said at this stage it's an abduction.
And listening to Brian's interview, as we just did, where Don said the only thing that she may have done, speaking about his wife Candace, was choose some wrong friends. I hadn't heard him say that anywhere else until tonight. What do you make of that comment?
I think that's a very interesting comment. Maybe she chose some wrong friends. Well, that would go towards the victim continuum hypothesis that somebody would have access to that property, potentially known to those parents.
Chris, I know you went down to Tennessee to find out who Summer was, kind of get a sense of her environment. And when you saw her room in the basement of the house, you say you had a good understanding. Will you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think we can all agree, that 5-year-olds just don't vanish from their homes, from their basements. And in this situation, I wanted to see in relationship to what a potential suspect could see. What were the access points? Could somebody have been lying in wait in the basement? What was her living environment? What was her circumstances around her? And then of course I wanted to see what the door mechanisms were, the points of entry, the points of exit. Could you see into that basement? Would a suspect know she was going to be in that basement? So I came to a better understanding of seeing the environment as a whole. There is no door between the parents' room and Summer's room, and it's just a brick wall. It's cold, it's damp, it was disheveled.